Thing every time. There we go. Hi guys. I hope everyone is having an awesome Friday. Happy Friday. I will wait for people to filter in. And I can't look at comments on my iPod because I'm using it today as a part of the stream. So we will go ahead and wait a second for people to come in. Let me know that you can hear me, because I don't have the headset on. It's up there. So, let me know that everything's good. And we will flip this so the computer doesn't get all funky. Wait a minute for people to come on. We got one person. Hello, whoever you are. I'm not on mobile, so I can't see exactly who it is that popped up. Let me know that you can hear me and that the levels are good. I'm not lagging. It's an Anna. Hi. What's up? Hope you're having a happy Friday. Hi. Yay. We have lots of announcements today, so I will give it a couple minutes. It's a little before 12. For those watching the replay, hi. My name's Rachel Arazo. I am admin for the Tarot and Tea group. I made this. It's my baby. I love it. And I am all about intuitive reading. I'm an intuitive tarot reading mentor and coach, which I'm going to talk a little bit about today. But we have some big announcements. It's a little laggy. Okay, let's try something. Let's try something. Let's fix that. Come on. It may be because, hang on. That better? That might be a little better. Is it still a little laggy for you? Am I lagging? I just want to make sure we're good before we officially start. And if you come in, say hello. At least let me know that you guys are watching and listening and can hear me. Okay, so, like I was saying, I am Rachel Arazo. I own the group. I also have the Start Reading Tarot Intuitively course. I've been doing this for the course itself since last year, but I've been reading tarot for, like 8 years? Yeah, maybe 8 years. Hello, Lisa, hi! Yeah, and it's so incredibly fun. I'm incredibly theatrical, as you will find out. I'm introducing myself because we have 279 lovely people in this group now. Almost close to 300, and it is getting amazing. It's getting ridiculous. So, to help, first off, I messed up. I always like to own up when I mess up. We got a wonderful new person added to the course this morning that was using the wrong price. My original price, if you guys have been here for forever, was $47. And let me show you really quick. Which one is it? Let me go to it. So this email that was sent to you guys, if you join the Tarot and Tea newsletter, it's labeled when I first started reading tarot for the subject line, if you want to go search for it. Yeah, all the way at the bottom, I still got it for $47 right here. So, because I messed up, and the price is different on this, and I have not updated it, I will give you guys until Sunday if you want to take advantage of this. There's literally a button right there at the very bottom if you want to take advantage of it. And that's me messing up. So, But Sunday night, it is getting fixed, and it's going back up to 197 for this email. Okay? So, and if you guys have questions about my course, let me know. But that was first announcement today I messed up on. And I will wholeheartedly claim that mess up. So, what we're actually going to talk about today is costuming your cards. Actually, specifically the style of dress and why the hell it matters when it comes to tarot reading. Because if you think about it this way, we all have different styles. Okay? And when we walk into a room, our very first impression is off of our clothes and how we appear before we even speak. So, if you're watching a movie, what they're wearing, what an actor is wearing for that character, that'll immediately give you a vibe and an energy. Same thing with tarot. We look at the images of a card and we immediately vibe with it or we don't like it. Okay? So, we're talking about that kind of feel today, specifically with the clothing that a card wears. Okay? And that the characters in the cards wear. So, first off, in a general sense, the Rider-Waite is based on the 14th century, specifically. It's right after the Middle Ages, and right before the Renaissance. And if you think about that time period, the Middle Ages and medieval period came about after the Dark Ages, where all this war was going on. They didn't have a monarch in some parts of Europe, and they're finally starting over. They're like, we haven't been doing good on our own. We're going back, and we're going to pay attention to what the Greeks did, and classical thinking, and we're going to revamp it, and make ourselves great again, you know? And really, there's a lot of advancements in education. There's a lot of advancements because of the church. And that's the time period for the Rider-Waite. That's what we're going off of here. And then we fast forward to when the deck was made, which was in 1909 by Pamela Colman Smith and Arthur Waite. They are in the end of the Edwardian period, very beginning of 1900s. And we get some Catholic mysticism from Waite and his writing style and his bickering back and forth with Aleister Crowley, mixed with Pamela Colman Smith's bohemian style and world traveler attitude and just how she is as a person. We get these two completely different people and we mix them together and we get the wonderful Rider-Waite Tarot. So, or the Rider-Waite Smith. And it's actually called Rider-Waite because the publisher is Rider, who was the original publisher. So, she incorporated some of that bohemian energy into a mixture with the 14th century. And that gives us a very interesting type of clothing style. And all this month we're going to be talking about the clothing. Because when we read intuitively, we're relating things to our memory, things that we've learned. And something as minute as clothing can tell you so much more about a card and help you remember the meaning so much more than memorizing a keyword. Okay? We're going to approach it like that. So does anybody have questions so far? Hi, Susie! I'm sneaking a peek while I'm at work. Much rather be slinging cards. Exactly. Susie says, I have her deck and it's one I learned tarot with, the one with the pink backs. Exactly. A lot of people learned with the Rider-Waite, and that's absolutely okay. And actually my course, we're focusing more on that style. But even using clothing and pay attention to the style of clothing can help with any deck, because it gives you some tips into who these characters are and what their meanings will be. So, for example, we have the Empress, okay? We think of the Empress, we think of keywords like nurturing and feminine and, you know, growth. We have a watery type energy because she's a woman, she's fertile and growing, usually she's pregnant. But if we pay attention to her clothing, we really get some interesting keywords in there. So, for example, the type of dress she's wearing is more not bohemian, it's more Edwardian. Because Edwardians used to have a state of dress, specifically for women, called undress. And so if this woman invites men over to her house and they go to her chambers and she's in a state of undress, she's wearing just a gown, no corset, no petticoat underneath, no cage, nothing. Maybe some makeup and some rouge. And usually it's a long scoop neck, it's got short sleeves, it's very scandalous. And it's called a state of undress. She may as well be naked. That's why we see all these paintings of that time period where these women are lounging on a couch in like this slip or in this nightgown. And to us, it's really modest because we don't have long dresses like that anymore. But back then, it was like nude photos. And they would paint them and they'd hang them up on the wall. So the Empress is in a state of undress because she's pregnant normally. And when you're pregnant during this time period, you don't leave the house. You stay inside because you can't wear a corset, you can't be bound up, and you stay home and you entertain people in this state of undress or with a robe. So she has a little bit more of a scandalous flair to her, but it shows how free-flowing she is because she's not bound by a corset. She has no steel boning, okay? And this is not the time period where we see the exaggerated corsets, where it would rearrange the organs and stuff. This is still a normal size corset. They don't purposely make themselves super skinny. That's not this time period. After this, like give it another 10 years or so, that's when we get the really exaggerated ones, and that's when we start moving into the straight figures for the flappers, you know? So that's not what we're talking about with the exaggerated shape. So she's very feminine and she's tempting, but in this type of I have a strength in my own sexuality type of tempting. So her mood is free-flowing. You can tell that she's a wonderful thing to laugh at. And then you think of her accessories, like she has a shield. So it's like I'm free-flowing and I'm all about growing and nurturing, but at the same time, I've got a shield holding me up, and I know how to protect myself either way. So I may be all about free expression, but I also know what a step too far is, you know? Does that make sense? Have I lost you guys? Interesting. Anna says, I'd love to hear about clothes and how they fit in. Belonged to the SCA Medieval Society a long time ago. Awesome. Yeah. And what clothes really have a standing point in our history. So I'm a costumer. I'm a seamstress. I'm also in theater. I have done everything. I've directed. I've stage managed. I've run all the technical booths. I've designed. I'm a carpenter, I'm a seamstress, I'm all over the place. The only thing I really haven't done is being a props master and hanging the lights myself for lighting. Everything else I've done. So, when we think of costuming, we can tell so much about a person based off of what they're wearing. We get their personality, especially if we adhere to their social aesthetics and how they are in society. We have their social status, gender identity, because if we have a man in a woman's dress, or we have a woman in armor, or doing something masculine, then we automatically get a different vibe from them, and we can tell who they are as a character. We get the weather and the season, so the Empress, she can afford to be outside like that because it's summer, okay, or it's spring, it's warmer out. If it was colder out, she'd be wearing a coat, just something normal. You get their political and social standing. The more crosses they have on themselves and the more armor they have on themselves, the more political. The less weight they have, the more social they are. You get how old they are based on how much they're covered. So if we think about, my mother is an 80s kid, so she likes to wear her bright colors and weird fabrics, and it dates her, okay? Even during, and this has happened throughout history, you date yourself. So if we move from, if we have someone in the Victorian period who's like in their 80s, if they live that long, but they're covered in ribbons and bows, and they have Captain Hook hair, and they're really tight belted, and even the men did this especially. They have all these intricacies on them. You can tell that they grew up in the previous time period, because they really did that. Or if you have someone in the Elizabethan period, the previous time period, women would have these giant white wigs with bird cages in them, and they'd had live animals in their hair. And they had to go to bed, they had these giant cages, literally, to go around their hair to make sure that they didn't mess up, and they'd wake up and have dead animals in their hair. So this is something that happened. I had to wear one of those for a show. It was ridiculous. But you get this sense of who belongs to what time period. So the fact that the Empress is an older woman, but not too old, and she's in a state of undress, it shows what time period she's from. Okay, whereas all the younger characters in this have longer sleeves, and the dresses are a little bit shorter. They cut off above the knees. Hers goes down to the floor. It shows a different age. You also get their activities. If you have shorter sleeves, you're not doing as much work. You get all kinds of stuff thrown in here. So telling the clothes and the style of the clothes that someone is wearing can give a huge key into understanding how they are in tarot. Do I still have everybody? Yes, I think so. Give me a thumbs up or a heart if I still got you. If you're understanding what I mean. Water break. Yes, awesome. Got some people around. So, this, and one interesting thing as well, is Tarot, especially for the major arcana, likes to personify ideas. Okay? We give an idea a face. So, for example, the Fool is based off of the idea, if we were to do acting archetypes, of an innocent. Okay? So, they're free to be themselves. They want to go to paradise. They get to be happy as a goal. They have a fear of being punished for what they want to do. They're optimistic and have lots of faith and beliefs, and they're really naive. That would be the acting archetype for the Fool. So how does his style look? He's free-flowing. He barely has any materials with him. He's not paying attention to where he's going. He's wearing unnecessary clothes in the wrong climate. He would be ridiculously naive. And he would get so much culture shock. You could see it on his face, no matter what the deck is. So, seeing that gives you an idea of who he is as a person, and it helps you recognize that person in your own life a little bit more. So, we're going to take a look. Let me turn this back on. We're going to take a look at, at some cards. And we're going to pay attention to their style. Okay, that's still going. So, this may lag out, if this goes. This was just working! Streams. That one. This was just working! This is what happens when I try to be high tech. I was going to show you guys an overhead view. It's okay. Let's do this instead. I will hold up the cards though. So, I've got our lovely Empress here from the Witch's Tarot. Okay, so we have her in green, which would show that she's royal for the time period. We'll get to color in another live stream. Because of how dark the shade is. And for the time period, even this one, where her sleeves are a little bit different, and the cut of the dress is a little bit different, that much pigment in a dress is expensive. That's why the lower class didn't have as much pigment in their clothes. And it wasn't these deep colors. You can tell she's royalty just from looking at this. So, first of all, this is Edwardian here. And you can tell because of the cut of the dress. She's got a band right underneath the bust. No, this is Empire period, I'm sorry. Because then you get the Empire waist and it goes down. And the reason that happens, let's make sure you guys can see, is because she is pregnant in this card. She has a baby bump. So, do an Empire waist, hide the baby bump. It looks more flattering on a pregnant woman to have an Empire waist outfit on. If you have something that cinches, it's going to not be as flattering and it's going to make her look bigger than she actually is, and that was horrible. It's still kind of horrible. She can afford to have this long fabric on her sleeves. Okay? And get a bit of a closer look here. She can afford to have that, first of all. Any excess fabric and cuts like this in multiple pieces for the time period, it costs more money. A lot of the times, that's why you see in Rider-Waite, so for example, the Three of Pentacles, you have this guy, you can tell it's one piece of fabric that he would slip over his head. It was cheaper to do that because stitching cost more money. Okay, and he's got this long hat on, like he's going to sleep, but it's attached to the rest of it. That costs money too. You can tell he has some money and it's got a pattern on it. So he can afford to have women sitting there for hours embroidering his stuff, you know? So the Empress has money because she's the Empress. Okay. She can afford to have a gold shield and a matching emerald scepter with a gold rod. Okay. She has pearls around her neck. These accessories cost money. And the Emperor can put up the bill. And she is able to be as nurturing and as free-flowing as she wants and sit outside with all this hay and all this grass. So, that is one example. Another thing to pay attention to the surrounding things. She's got a rabbit in the corner. What are rabbits known for? Multiplying. So she's all about multiplying. And then we compare to the Enchanted Worlds version of her. You see what I mean by the state of undress? You've seen this type of woman in an oil painting before, where she's lounging and she's showing off her bust, because back then they actually found bigger women attractive, because the bigger the hips, the more likely she could give birth without dying. She is in royal purples, okay? But she has an upper corset on. Her stomach is let out. So she still cares about her appearance and keeping up, but at the same time, you can tell that she's really relaxed. She has multiple layers on of clothes. Remember what I said about cloth? Cloth is expensive. This is way before we had any mills in the Industrial Revolution. So the fact that she has more layers means more people had to sit down and weave that crap together and get all those patterns. She's got stripes on her band around her waist. She is living the life right here. She can afford to grow her hair out. Okay, even in this version, her hair is a little long. It's to her shoulders, which shows, like, you know, practicality of being a mother, but she can still afford to have her hair looking as nice as it is. This woman has her hair all the way down to her waist, long black locks. She can afford to sit there for hours and brush her hair. You're getting some ideas of who she is as a woman just by looking at her, okay? What do you guys think? What would you tell about these two lovely ladies? Huh? Let's tweak her a little bit so you guys can see. What would you say about these lovely ladies? Anna says, I need a classic Rider-Waite. Me looking into the clothing, I want a Rider-Waite more now. Susie says this is super fascinating. I'm glad, and I could talk for hours about this because paying attention to these small details like this, you figure out a little bit more who relates to you as as like a person. I personally love the green on the Empress more than I love the purple, because you don't see a lot of green Empresses. So what other characteristics would you pair with these lovely ladies? You know, another thing to note on the Enchanted World, she has this long silk white cloth she's sitting on her throne. If you think back to the Silk Road, this time period, first of all, the reason our knowledge started expanding so much more is because Muslim and Islamic priests and scholars started coming over from the Middle East and sharing their knowledge, because they actually had the first working hospital and started doing medical research over in the Middle East. The Silk Road opened up and we learned about tea, and we got new pigments for clothes because they're coming from China, because the Chinese invented tea because that's where it naturally grew. And they have been learning it for years and working with pigments. So all this stuff, along with silkworms, fixing my hair, all of this wonderful things came along the Silk Road. So the royalty, because it was so expensive to go back and forth, especially in England and Italy, they started adding these things to their wardrobe. And if a monarch wore it, that's one thing to note. If the monarchs in your decks are wearing something, you're going to notice that the upper middle class and the middle class even are going to be copying them in some way. The lower class, they're going to try, but they won't succeed. Maybe the cut will be the same or slightly the same, but the pigment will be in their browns and their whites and creams, because those are cheaper to make. Brown pigment is very easy to make. Red, especially, not so much. Red is expensive. So if you see somebody in your deck, like the Suit of Wands, they have ridiculous pigment. Let's compare to some other cards. Let's see, did anybody try anything? Anna says, my decks are very different from Rider-Waite-Smith usually, but I recognize some of it from the Guy and Taro by Joanna Powell Colbert, being relaxed, loose clothing, long hair. Exactly. And there are so many themes between Rider-Waite that transfer to all their little mini copies, because all these different cards take these attributes. And if you look at it from a historical standpoint and look specifically at something like clothing, they realize, yes, this woman does have the time to sit here and have her servants help her brush her hair. Things like that. Or it's very loose and super comfortable, because what woman, if you don't have to get up and go to work, isn't going to wear something baggy? If we got to go up and go somewhere, then we wear the tighter fitting clothes, because if it's something loose, it's going to get caught in a lathe, and that's how you die. So, let's look at another example. Let's change to a different upper class. Let's go to a priest. Let's go to the Hierophant. So, we have the Hierophant here, looking at men's clothing. First off, this red is red pigment. It costs a lot. He's in the church. He can afford to have red pigment. It's all one piece of fabric. Like, there are no seams on this. Okay, it's all one giant piece of cut fabric. And underneath, he's got a white shirt. He's got no seams anywhere. It's all one giant piece. But he's got multiple layers. The more layers you're wearing, generally the richer you are. Okay? He's got a necklace. He can afford accessories. He can afford a button on his collar. This robe disappears into black because of how long it is. It shows how much longer it took to make this stupid thing. If I had to make this for him, I'd be so mad. Let me see. And that's really all for his clothes. Just the vibrancy of that red is the thing that stands out here. And if you notice, the Hierophant and the Rider-Waite, he is a luminescent red. All the other priests around him don't have any hats on, because hats cost more cloth and are expensive. They have their heads out, they have no hoods, and they are not wearing red. He is the only one in that picture wearing red, and he's got a crown with multiple layers. He can afford steeples of layers of gold on his head. He's got money, and he draws the eye because he is the most opulent person. Okay? So let's compare that to the Enchanted World, okay? The Enchanted World version, it is this man with a long white beard that is very well groomed and well kept. He's got the time to do that. With hair that's grown out in more of a Greek fashion. Wearing this multi-layered white gown. Okay, he's got a large white necklace. He's got a belt. If you see anybody wearing leather, that's expensive, okay? Leather is very expensive when it comes to clothes. So, and especially during this time period where they're copying the Greeks. Yeah, and it's really hard to see in the live stream. But if you look at a picture of the Enchanted World Taro and you look at the Hierophant, this is embroidered on his belt. That was considered a skill for a woman to sit down and embroider something. That's why you would see knights with embroidered handkerchiefs or an embroidered scarf or something. It's because the women that they love made it for them, and they took the time and the hours to sit there and embroider something. He's got something embroidered here because he's in the church and he can afford to have women go do that for him. It's pleated, okay? On the inside of his sleeves, it's got stripes. You can tell that it's been folded and it's been sewn as such. They did not have irons during this time. Okay, so they did during Pamela Coleman Smith's time. During the Edwardian period, they had the start for irons where you put them on the fire and let them heat up. This time period, not so much. They didn't have that. So they would hand stitch when they wanted it to look like that. Just today is going to make you so appreciative of irons and zippers and JCPenney and and things that are more easily to get. But if you look also in the foreground, we have a man in purple wearing multiple layers, so we have a wealthy man paying attention, and we have a wealthy woman in light blue in the foreground paying attention to the Hierophant. And he has this starch white gown. He can afford to be out here in the middle of this field, preach to these rich folks, and have somebody to clean it at home. He's got somebody with a washboard waiting to clean his gown when he gets home and get all those grass stains out. Just think about that. It's ridiculous. Are you guys still with me? Here we go. And it says red is often in the Emperor, for example. Yes, it is, because he's royal. And red costs the most. So he will make sure that he saves enough red pigment for himself. His wife can have a little to get a purple gown, but he gets the most red pigment. Also, if you think about it, the monarchs always associated themselves with some kind of a religion. And as the monarch changed, so did the country's religion. So, we have Catholic priests here. The king is naturally going to be Catholic or some kind of religious symbol, especially as Rider-Waite is based off of Christian mysticism and the Kabbalah, so it's a combination of the two, which, Linda, if you're still watching, if you remember back to when we had a very nasty person in this group that wanted to argue about the pillars for the High Priestess, it's from the Kabbalah. That's why. I didn't even realize that until I researched it yesterday. I was like, oh, that's what she was talking about. But either way, those kinds of religious symbols, that red is going to be prevalent in the Emperor because he associates himself with that. Let me see. Anna says, if it'll let me scroll. Oh yes, making medieval clothes as close to the original is a pain in the ass. Yes. Yes, it is. Oh, but it is so worth it afterwards because you feel so authentic. It's wonderful. So, quickly moving along. Let's let's move to someone upper middle class, shall we? Someone from the Kingdom of Wands. We have a 3 of Wands here. So, he's wearing red. But it's not as opulent of a red, it's more of an orange red. Okay, that matters. Because it means that he has a little bit more yellow in his pigment than he does red. He has the money to have a scarf on his head, because he's got a band on his head and he's looking out at the ocean. He is looking out at the ships coming in. He can afford to have 3 large staves to support him. He can afford to have long sleeves with an embroidered cape. There's some gold embroidered on that cape of his. So, this is a rich man, upper middle class. I would say like his brother is a knight, that type of upper class, is willing to stand here, watch the ships come in, most likely looking for his own ship, because he's probably a merchant of some kind, and just wait. Okay. He's not as upper class as the others because he doesn't have as many accessories that we can see from this angle. Okay, but that's very interesting. Compared to the Enchanted World, they have no clothes, but they're cherubs. They have wings. It's divine, which is higher than any monarch could be, but not as high as, a god. They have poinsettias in their hands to give some red, show some royalty. These are plump cherubs. They're not skinny. They can afford to eat. That's another thing that you can pay attention to someone's style. Pay attention to their body type. If they are heftier, they have the money to eat. They're not wanting for anything. Okay? If they are skinnier, they're a little bit poorer. They're more 5 of Pentacles range. Let's do this last one. We have the 8 of Pentacles. Okay? So this woman, she's sitting, first of all, so it makes it a little bit difficult. She can afford to have a very large candle and a raven. She has a pure white cloth with silver embroidered all around the edges that she can use to polish some gold pentacles. White is it's a common fabric, but it's hard to clean and keep starch white, so that shows that she does have a little bit of money. She is wearing, looking at the pigment here, dark green, because she's in Pentacles. But look at the fan on that sleeve. It stops at the elbow and then it fans out. So she can afford to have a little bit more sleeve because she's an 8 of Pentacles. She's a little bit more along the line. She's closer to 9. And she can afford to have a bracelet and 2 rings on her hands. So she has some money. I would consider her a very wealthy businesswoman that has worked very hard and that knows exactly what to do. She knows how to spend her money wisely. That's why she's so detailed. She's budgeted like hell. She's doing more work than her spouse does, because she's married. She's got the rings to show she's married, but at the same time, they're not here to help her. So it shows how independent she also is. She has hair that goes to her mid-back. It's fanning up onto the side. So she can afford to have it out a little bit, but not too much. She'd probably have to trim it. I'm looking because there's a flower here, but it also kind of looks like a tarantula. And she's not worried about it. She's studying, so it's very much more... She's doing this for pleasure as well as for business. We get a sense of who she is just by paying attention to her clothing, her accessories, what are around her. Whereas if we compare it to the Enchanted World, these pentacles are more like stars, and they're going up in the air. This woman in the photo wears a tan tunic cut off above the knee, and her sleeves don't fan out, but you can tell that it's 2 pieces because there's an embroidered piece right here that's holding it together that's been stitched. So, And she's got a kind of a brooch thing right here on her neckline. We don't see her feet, but she looks barefoot. She's got earrings on, and her hair is pulled back. It doesn't look like it's purposely cut short. So, she's got a little bit of money. Not as much as the Witch's Taro counterpart. But the gown is loose enough that she can relax a little bit. But she's not paying as much attention to detail. The pentacles on this are lace, actually. It looks like lace, and they're incredibly detailed, so it still shows some attention to detail, but it's more like you're relaxed in what you have. You're comfortable. So there's not as much need to budget and schedule things, you know? And even up here on the top, the feathers up here look embroidered. You can see the texture that they probably pinned this to the painting after it was done. Very interesting. Today's a fun day. Let's make sure that this is going and it's not frozen. There we go. Haha. So, why are we talking about clothes so much? And why are we talking about them in relation to Taro? We are having a new workshop. And for those of you who weren't here for the Shadow Work workshop, how workshops work in this group. We will meet January 31st for a Costume Your Cards workshop. We're going to go over all kinds of different ways you can, how the meanings of your cards change if you change the time period, if you change the clothes, the fabrics, everything like that. We're going to go over all of that in about an hour or two. And you have to sign up at the link for it. And let me pop that up. If you don't, that following weekend on Sunday, this disappears and it goes into the Start Reading Tarot Intuitively course. Okay? So you have to sign up. Let's make sure that it'll actually let me. Come on. It's being very slow. So, like I said, it's called Costume Your Cards. It's going to be very fun. You guys will get a workbook like usual. You'll get a replay. That's also the only time you get the replay. Sunday, I'm deleting the replay from the group. And if you sign up to the list, you get the replay and you get the workbook. I won't be posting it like I did with the challenge. So, it's a little bit more exclusive. And I know a lot of people here would benefit from taking this because it's so fun. And I'm giving away some inserts that are a part of my shop, Taro and Tea, on Etsy. So you guys get some exclusive paid content as well. And like I said, you must sign up for the list. Otherwise, it goes away and you can't get in unless you buy the course. Okay, so that's posted, and I'll pin it in a moment once it finally comes up. There we go. The sign-up page is all ready, and throughout the rest of this month, we're going to talk about some other components to keep in mind with costuming your cards. So, I hope you guys had fun today, and one thing, if you want to also get the replays for these live streams, for those that just joined a group, make sure you join the Taro and Tea newsletter, and I send out the replays for you. But that offer for fixing the price for the course, that goes away Sunday at 11:59 p.m. That's when it'll officially be fixed, and then no more people can get it for the low price. And that's because I'm a dingus and I messed up. So take advantage of it. Join the course. I'm revamping all kinds of things, and you're getting all kinds of lovely stuff in return. So make sure you do it. And I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your day, okay? Yay! And Anna joined. Super easy. It takes 2 seconds. Yeah, have a wonderful Friday, guys. Have a great weekend, and I will see you later. Bye.